visual results of those talents. This is Bennie Day, a local wood carver that has done and created some interesting scenes. We welcome Bennie, but first we're going to take a look at some videotape. This is a scene that Bennie recreated or created years and years ago, and there was some competition that was going on in Holmes department store. Is that right, Bennie?
Yeah, among all the stores.
And what game is this that you carved or recreated?
LSU in Oklahoma, 1950, Sugar Bowl. That was Gano Tinsley's Cinderella team.
How long did it take you to do this?
About a year. Spare time, of course. I worked at Exxon, and this was just in my spare time. About 14 hours on each figurine.
I hope that the cameras folks will do us justice, and when you call in, I know you're going to probably want to ask Bennie about how in the heck he was, but the detail here is incredible. Look at this stuff. Let's go from that, Ed, over to camera 4, and you'll take a look at a scene we're looking at now, which is a country store. Actually, that's Mike Rhodes. You didn't I'm sorry, this is the saloon scene that you did. How do you get your characters to look so lifelike? Their mannerisms, and they appear to be real. How do you do it?
Well, it's just, you know, I guess in my young days, I used to watch the cowboy shows, and that's a kind of a takeoff on the old Western ballroom scenes. And I just, you know, studied people and know people's anatomy real well and know how to carve and get that expression I wanted. No, I never had a lesson in art, particularly. I just learned on my own and just developed my own tools, and I carved with a razor blade, double-edged razor blade.
We're going to come back and look at the country store in a second, but Bennie, you don't work from any photographs or anything like that?
No drawings.
Okay,
no.
These particular things that I'll show up to camera 1 here, Ed, tell us about these.
I started fooling with that after I gave up the carving, which was about 30 years ago, and got to sculpture those in clay and then make a rubber mold.
Right.
And then hand-painted them and did them for every school in Baton Rouge at one time.
If I understand it, everybody that graduated, every graduating senior received one of these?
Well, about 10 years ago, I'd say every school in Baton Rouge was getting them. Up to last year, University High and Covington and Ville Platte were getting them. That's the last 3 schools. But they couldn't afford them as a reason they had to give them.
We have a call. Go ahead, caller. A question for Bennie? Hello, do you have a question for Bennie?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
What is the largest wood carving that you have ever carved?
What you see here is this small here, which are about 4 inches tall, these little figurines. I've never carved anything big.
Stay on the line, ma'am. Watch your TV, but go ahead, Joe. Go ahead and take the shot. This is the scene of the country store. And the detail, your carvings are just so extremely detailed. How do you research them for the authenticity? I mean, it seems like it's right to the time period.
Well, you know, that was a way of life back there then, Pat. People, everybody stopped to smell the roses, so to speak.
Right.
And it was just the way I can't tell you that I actually was in a store like that, but it's the way I picture the store would have looked in those days. And I didn't use any trade names. I just painted each one. I just thought up a name and painted it on there.
We have I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just painted each one individually. Each one is hand-carved individually.
Okay, caller, go ahead. You have a question for Bennie.
Yes, Mr. Day, I was wondering, in the LSU football scene, if any of those people were actual people, if you were, you know,
very much
faces in there, of anybody you actually knew?
Yes.
Say hello to Francis and Bede.
Yeah, they were represented the LSU team at that time. Charlie Peavy, who used to be a coach at LSU, was a quarterback on that team. And Gano Tinsley was a coach. And Darryl Royal, who was later All-American at that time for Oklahoma, and he later became coach of Oklahoma and is now athletic director out there.
What type of wood do you like to use?
Balsa wood.
And a razor blade, as we're seeing. This is what you do this with, a double-edged razor blade. The old Gillette double?
Well, the old Gillette thin blade. They don't make it anymore. It's thinner than the blades they make now, a lot thinner.
Well, let me ask you something, Bennie. When you're doing this stuff at home, does your wife think you're nuts or what?
Well, I guess at the time she did. But she put up with me, bless her heart. I give her all the credit.
But to do these individually, again, how long did it take?
Well, those little figurines that I painted up there, of course, I just hand-painted them. I guess a couple of hours took me to paint them. But I painted them kind of in a similar line. Like for a school, I'd paint the shoes and the pants and go through them like that. But sometimes I'd paint up an individual figurine, but most of the time I'd paint up a bunch of them.
Okay.
But that was Ole Miss, and that's LSU Tigers.
Yeah. Here's another call. Let's take it. Go ahead.
What piece took you the longest?
The football, it took a year to carve that.
And the entire football field?
The whole football, and that was my third football exhibit. I'd carved 3 of those, incidentally.
And it won the prize in the store window.
For the outstanding window display for the Sugar Bowl that year. Right?
I see. Here's another call coming in. Good evening. Thanks for calling. A question for Benny.
Yes, sir. I want to know, when did you start to carve and everything? How old were you?
I was about 21 years old. I'd never carved anything particularly. I used to draw and do some cartooning in my early days, but I didn't start carving until I was 21 years old. And I just started with some little scrap wood left over from an airplane kit I was building, and that launched it. And I made one little figurine, and I took off from that. I loved football, and I lived it vicariously because I wanted to play it so bad, so I carved it out instead of playing it.
Yeah, I played a few downs, too, without a helmet. Thanks for the call. But you can't do it as much anymore.
No, due to some physical limitations. I have these tremors, and I can't hold a knife. That's the sorriest part about this whole thing. I can still do it in my mind, but my hands won't cooperate.
Boy, your work's incredible.
Well, thank you,
I think it's probably going to find a nice place maybe in the Louisiana Archives.
Well, I hope so. I hope it ends up in a museum.
Maybe we can help you out with that.
Well, I
Bennie,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
God bless you. You got a wonderful show.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the week.